We are going to go ahead and get started, and I know we'll probably have a few more who filter in here as I know a lot of people are out of school today, so we want to wish everybody a happy Veterans Day and hope you are enjoying the time that you have out of school. My name is Katie Shuck. I am CybHER's Chief of Strategy. I have with me Kanthi Narakonda, who is CybHER's Chief of Operations, and then the co-founders of CybHER, Drs. Ashley Podorotsky and Dr. Pam Rowland, who are both professors at Dakota State University, which is where CybHER is located. We are thrilled to have you here today. Before we get into introductions of our speaker, I want to quickly just go over some logistics and remind you that if you have a question to ask, you can do that via the Q&A that you'll find at the bottom of the screen. And Kanthi will be facilitating the Q&A period later on during the today's conversation. Now, today I am so very excited because I think she is awesome. I'm so excited to feature Kaitlyn Bestenheider. You might know her better as Crypto Kate on Twitter. She is a Senior Information Security Analyst with Tevora, but perhaps most intriguing is her and her dog Zena's role as the Chief Player Ambassador with the National Cyber League. It's one of the nation's most inclusive capture the flags, or CTFs, that you'll find. The NCL is a competitive game meets edutainment that simulates real-life cyber threats in a safe environment and helps students learn how to defend against them. So without further ado, I am going to hand it over to Kate.
Hi there. So yeah, as she said, a lot of people know me as Crypto Kate, at least most of my players do. By day, I serve as an information security analyst, which means that I do everything from security and risk assessments to compliance assessments. I'll write policies and procedures. I write a lot of system security plans, which are very, very, very long documents that describe how you meet different security controls. And I do some third-party vendor management. I do work for a company called Tevora, which is a cybersecurity consulting firm. And my phone is ringing because I'm a terrible person. So that's what I do by day. And then after my 9 to 5 ends, I take off my work hat and I put on my superhero cape, where I serve as the Chief Player Ambassador of the National Cyber League. What I love about what I do is that it has never really existed before. There's never been a person who said, I'm going to go out there and make CTFs easier and more accessible to everyone. So I'm going to get this phone turned off so that doesn't happen again. So it all kind of came about because I went to the Women in Cybersecurity Conference, and I felt like I really found like my people. I saw more people in cyber who looked like me, and I met Jenny Cam, who was working for Cisco at the time, who said, oh yeah, you can do this one really weird niche thing and that can be a whole job, or you can do this other one really weird niche thing and that can be a job. And she kind of just made me realize that the possibilities were completely limitless. So I really took that to heart and decided to make my own niche in the industry. So it started with an email to Dan Manson that I was going to borrow some of the NCL content, and I wasn't asking for permission. It needed to happen. We needed to get more girls in the competition because at the time we were somewhere around the same amount as women in the industry, and I said that we could do better. So I wanted to bring it to the conference and show everybody how accessible and easy it was to get into the games. So it started with one little tiny workshop, and then I was on Facebook Live. And we realized that I was sort of changing what the stereotype of a hacker was, because, you know, a lot of times you think of a hacker as a little bit of a moody boy with a hoodie in their mom's basement. And I'm the opposite of that. I'm bright, I'm perky, I have a lot of energy, I wear my heart on my sleeve. You always know where I stand. I'm always smiling. I'm always a bucket of joy. And that's not really what you thought of as somebody who was a hacker. So I wanted more people to feel like they could do as well as I had done. And so I started writing blogs on how to do better in the games. And then NCL kept asking for more and more things. And I was like, I can't do this alone. I need a whole team. And now we're up to something like 20 ambassadors. And I run a program. And I think just for the next spring season, which is only half the year, we have something like 60 blogs planned. So now we have, people writing content Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Every day of the week, we're publishing new content to help players get ready for the games. So I started a blog, I started a program, I went off and I got my job in the industry and I do what I love. And all of that is because I went back to school because a boy that I was seeing made more money than me and worked half as hard. And I didn't like that because I was smarter than him. And I showed him just how smart I was by getting a better job. I think that's sort of my background. I love questions. So what we do with the NCL Player Ambassadors, we actually have a live show every Thursday night. And we usually just do questions. Like, that's our favorite. So if you guys want to start with the questions now, I'm happy to just run with questions the whole show, or we can talk more about NCL. I don't know what's helpful to you guys.
Well, you can talk more about NCL. I've heard of NCL many times, but I'm not really familiar. But you can talk a little bit more about that because they are our target demographic.
Yeah, well, Katie made it sound way cooler than I do, but it is an offensive and defensive cybersecurity capture the flag, so CTF, based on the CompTIA Security Plus, and then the NIST framework, which is an educational framework used to basically focus on career roles rather than learning objectives. So it's based on all that. It is a college competition, but we have it open to high school students who are 14 years of age or older. So we now have, 14-year-olds competing against grad students, and some of our high schoolers are knocking grad students out of the water. One of our player ambassadors, Fred Stinchcomb, teaches at an all-girls high school, and then he teaches at the community college or possibly a university. I should know this. I'm a terrible person. But his grad students were getting beat out by this high school girl, and I was just like, yes. Because she's been competing in competitions with him for a lot longer, and they were newer to the competition, so they weren't as prepared as she was. And I think she came in like 539th place or something, a high school student against 6,000 plus competitors nationwide. So it's absolutely attainable, even especially for high school. A high school girl did it, and that's without me even really getting my hands on the data to see how everybody did. We did just wrap up our fall season last weekend. I wrote a crypto puzzle that only 10 teams across the country solved, so that's a lot of fun. And I always love putting my own spin and my own flair on things. So my puzzle was actually hand-painted little canvases that we made Halloween decorations out of. And that's still on my Twitter if people wanted to try to see if they can find the puzzle. It is standard flag format, which for us means it is either NCL dash or SKY for Cyber Skyline dash, 4 letters dash 4 numbers. And that flag format kind of threw people off. A lot of people got the first part of the flag, but they struggled to get the last 4 digits. So that's been a lot of fun. The Player Ambassador program is really important to us because we try to have like a really diverse group of people. So we try to make sure that we represent our players as much as possible. And we bring a lot of our own projects to the table. For instance, we just started a Player Ambassador Diversity and Inclusion Advisory Board. We called it the DAB. It's not a great name, but it gets it done. Where CybHER was one of the first groups that we invited, because a lot of organizations will focus on specific types of diversity. When I first started as the Player Ambassador, I was very focused on women in technology, but I wasn't necessarily focused on other types of diversity. I have a disability, and I didn't even think about how different disabilities might be affected by the games. I created challenges where you had to be able to see the image that I had posted, and I wasn't providing enough alt text on the images. So it's really important for us that we get together a lot of different types of diversity in the same room to talk about diversity as a whole. So that's really why we formed our Diversity and Inclusion Advisory Board. We also have Feature Friday, which is open to you guys. If you go to the Crypto Kate blog, it's just cryptokate.com, and go under initiatives. You can apply to be featured on the Crypto Kate blog. So every Friday, we're trying to feature an author who has less than 5 years of industry experience. So this is really for entry-level professionals and students to sort of get their name out there. The only requirement that we have is that you have less than 5 years of experience and that you have a LinkedIn profile, because of course we want to help people get jobs in the industry. So we link to everybody's LinkedIn profile. We even have a new section on the blog. We recently just redid the whole blog for personal development. We have adulting, which is a weird category that's kind of like a joke for us. But we have career advice and human skills. So like how to get along with people, how to overcome imposter syndrome, and self-care is its own tag on the website. So we're trying to look at cybersecurity in a lot more of a holistic view than just here are a bunch of technical skills that you can improve on. How can we change the industry and make it better and make it more accessible and approachable to everyone, even if it's just some of those soft skills that not everyone has yet? And then we have a cybersecurity club section that we're trying slowly to build out. That's probably lagging behind the most. We have a mini series from a previous player ambassador called the Cybersecurity Club Survival Guide, everything from, drafting a charter through how to get guest speakers.
Awesome. I've never actually heard of a CTF until a couple of years ago. And I was like, what is a CTF? What does that mean? And I thought, capture the flag. Well, what kind of a flag is it? Because I thought I took it literally, like an actual flag. And I was like, what does that mean? And so I looked into it a little and I was like, oh, very interesting. You can learn and you can also like compete and win. So it's kind of fun. So our first question to you is, what advice do you have for someone who has never done a CTF before, but they want to, like where to get started and how to get started?
So I will say that I also could not figure out how we were going to capture flags through a computer when I first started. My first season, I still didn't know that Control-Alt-Delete were 3 separate buttons. I was looking for the Ctrl-Alt-Del button and I couldn't find it. And it was kind of a running joke among my peers. So I really wasn't very computer savvy when I started, but the best advice I can give you is to just go for it. At least within the National Cyber League games, there's a category called open source intelligence, which is literally just how well can you go out and find information that's already available on the internet? How good are you at Google? And a lot of us, especially kids who are going to school now, have been on computers since elementary school. You guys know how to Google, I wasn't really like Googling things until high school. So, it was available, but that's not how you did homework, So, the advantage of having been able to Google things your whole life, you already know this skill. So I would say a lot of CTFs are how well can you Google on the fly? Because even for me, even now, as much as I've played in the games, I still find myself going, oh man, how do I open this type of a file? And then and it's breaking it down into parts that you can Google. So the best skill you can have is breaking a problem down into smaller parts. So if you run into a file that you can't open, instead of saying, oh, I can't do this challenge, you say, how do I open this type of file? What type of file is it? My first time playing NCL, I couldn't open a .SQLite file. And I was like, how do I open a file that won't open? And they were like, well, what kind of file is it? How do I find out what kind of file it is? And then they were like, file extensions. I was like, what is a file extension? How do I find a file extension? Oh, okay. How do I open a file with the extension .SQLite? And it was just keep asking questions and you'll definitely make progress. The NCL is really designed to be a competition where you can learn as you go. So if you're working on a challenge, a lot of times if there's multiple questions in the same challenge, those first few questions are questions that you need to figure out in order to get to the next couple. And it sort of leads you down a breadcrumb trail of discovery. It's one of the things that I think the platform does really, really well. That's, all credit goes to CyberSkyline, the game makers, for really capturing this idea that you don't have to be the most elite hacker and be able to get through all the way to the end and hack everything to get points. You should be able to see how far you are personally able to go down that discovery path. So they don't expect you to know everything. They expect you to learn as you go. And some of the questions even lead you down that path. As far as where to get started, of course, I recommend the National Cyber League. I do think it is the best first CTF. That is, I won't say it's the best CTF ever. I do think it is the best first CTF. We've created a ton of resources. If you go to, of course, this is what everybody recommends in the games. But if you go to my website and you click on National Cyber League, there's a Start Here button that takes you to our coaching guide that tells you everything you need to know about the games. And there's even practice challenges and write-ups and basically anything you could ever need to find about the games. It is right there all in one place. We are the official resource for all things NCL. So it's kind of the best place to get started. But with NCL, it's broken down into just 9 categories, which makes it pretty accessible. The first category is, of course, that open source intelligence. The next category I've seen girls do really well in, which is cryptography. I actually learned cryptography from playing Nancy Drew video games as a kid. So when it was time to play in the NCL games, I was like, I know what this is. And I went to town on those, and I'm doing them all by hand. And somebody comes over and they're like, you just put that into the computer and it'll tell you what it is. And I was like, well, I don't know how to do that, but I know how to do it by hand. And that's sort of how I got the nickname Crypto Kate, because I was over here doing cryptography by hand because it's something that I knew. Another of my favorite categories is log analysis. And everybody goes into log analysis a little bit different. A lot of people have really great command line tools, which means you type into sort of a text box terminal, and it's not very exciting to look at, and it's all kind of data-y. I like to throw it into Excel, which is not the common approach, but it's an effective approach. And somebody once asked me, well, do you examine log files in Excel at work? Yes, I do, because I'm very good at Excel. So a good thing to know is that there's no wrong way to get to the right answer. You can always take a more creative approach to the challenge. Log analysis, analyzing the event logs that you're going to capture, that's absolutely something that you'll do in the field of cybersecurity. Same with network traffic analysis. It doesn't really matter what team you're on, you're going to need to know what's going on the network. And of course, they have the red team, or the penetration testing, or what most people consider the hacker skills in web exploitation, wireless access exploitation, enumeration and exploitation, which are a little more code heavy. We do scanning. We just got forensics this season, which is really exciting. So what's great about it is these are all skills that you'll learn in different paths, and you can figure out what you're really good at. And then the NCL website has this mapping that can tell you if you're good at this, then you might like these types of jobs. So it can really help you figure out what you're good at and what you're not good at. For me, I realized that I love blue team stuff, and the red team stuff makes me not really excited. So I knew I wanted to look for a defensive security role when I went out into the industry. But because I was more well-rounded because of my NCL experience, I found that I really liked being on a white team, which is, regulation and compliance and auditing. So, those skills really help you figure out what you're good at and what you like, because it's such a diverse competition. You're not focused just on red team or just on blue team. My understanding of CCDC is that it's very defensive. A lot of the DEF CON stuff's very offensive, and NCL is a good mix of both.
I was actually going to ask you how you got the name Crypto Kate. So thank you for answering.
It was the only thing I was good at.
So when someone is starting with the CTF, you mentioned NCL, how do they get started? Where do they register, or how do they register? Do you have all those guidelines on your website then?
I feel like I should. I don't think I have how to register, but if you go to nationalcyberleague.org, we aren't currently registering because we did just finish the season. So look for that stuff probably January, February. Usually they release it for my birthday, which is in January. So mid to late January, you'll usually see something from us. But you just go to nationalcyberleague.org, click on that competition link, and if you scroll down, you're going to see a register here button. You can also go to cyberskyline.com/ NCL. I should know this, but the easiest way is to get it from the National Cyber League website. There's also if you wanted to get started right now, there is a Cyber Skyline Pro, which is, Cyber Skyline is the game platform. They're the ones who make the NCL games. Their pro package, I think, is $99 a year. If I'm probably getting this wrong and they're going to yell at me later. But you have unlimited access to the same kind of content that you see in the NCL games year round. The NCL games is broken up into a few different parts. The first part is the gymnasium. And just like it sounds, it's a place for you to go practice your skills and work out to get ready for the games. Then we have a preseason, which is mandatory. This is a practice game that essentially helps us identify whether you're a top contender who needs to go in the gold bracket and face off against, our top teams, or if you need a little more practice and you're in silver and bronze. As long as you participate, you're in one of those and you're not in the pewter bracket. If you don't participate in preseason, you don't get a scouting report and you end up in the pewter bracket. So always participate in preseason. But it's a good warm-up game. It gets you ready for the real gameplay experience. Then we have the individual game, which is the big competition for all the guts and the glory. That's what our scouting reports are based on. And then after that, we have a team game. So you'll actually get to work together with other competitors so that you can learn how to be better at things that you might not have done as well during the individual game as you would like. And we think that that team game element is so important in sort of rounding out the season so that you're not stuck learning in a vacuum all by yourself. You get to work with your peers. So again, it combines, the best elements from all these other different types of competitions, whether it's, working by yourself and being forced to figure it out, or working in a group and having that dialogue. We try to include both. And then at the end of the season, you get scouting reports, which we like to think of them as supplemental guidance that you can add to your resume. So you can attach it to your resume or include it in a cover letter, things like that. And it shows how you did in each category. And we have a lot of players who use that when applying for jobs or when going to job interviews.
So earlier when we were just chatting, you said there was no space for what you're doing right now, the ambassador.
Yeah.
That right? So how did you make your own way, or how does one make their own way where there's no seat at the table, and how do you make another table? Or
So when I first started playing in the NCL games, NCL was made up of, and I love them, but 3 old white dudes. And I realized this pretty early on that, maybe, there isn't anyone like me. They realized there wasn't anyone like me. So it started with, hey, I'm going to use your content. Please don't sue me. And it became this like, oh, can you be on the show? Oh, can you talk to some of our players? Oh, can you answer some questions? Oh, what do you think? And then eventually they were like, oh, can you get on our weekly calls? And I was like, sure, yeah, it was these strategy calls. I was like, I don't know what I have to add, but I'll show up. And then, now I run this whole program who does, all of this work for the National Cyber League. And it was really just, I see an issue and I'm not going to stop until it's better. So I saw that we didn't have enough girls competing in the National Cyber League games. I only knew one other girl who was competing. That wasn't good enough for me. How could I fix that? And then when I went to the conference, I saw that people didn't know how to get started. So how do I fix that? I created a whole blog around that. I saw that players didn't really get anything for performing well in the game. So I started challenge coins, and I have lots of cool things that I'm not allowed to talk about that are still coming up because they haven't been approved. But every time I just see an issue, I say, how do we make that better? Earlier this year, when all of the protests got a lot more active, I took a hard look at our annual report, and I realized that Black and African American identifying players were the only ones who were not exceeding the population averages. They were about on par, and everywhere else were exceeding the average. So what are we doing wrong there? And I was like, this is not good enough. And they're like, okay, we'll make a statement. And I was like, no, we can't make a statement. We have to take action. And then we started our HBCU, or Historically Black College and University Scholarship Program. And we offered 107 scholarships to students who attend. historically Black colleges and universities. And it was always just identify an issue and then don't leave them alone until they fix it. I didn't always have the solution, but I wouldn't stop until we found one. So I dragged them a little bit crazy. But, you know, and now I have this whole team behind me. We have our advisory board. We have, you know, this new program coming out soon. And I'm going to go ahead and announce it because it's coming out soon, where we're going to have colleges help support high schools so that high schools have more access to resources to learn to play in the games, because we were realizing our high school players didn't really know who to turn to. So if there's a college nearby that's doing the program, why are these schools not talking to each other to offer these high schoolers who want to do better more opportunity? And, you know, we didn't have coach ambassadors, started a coach ambassador program, you know, like as soon as I identify a need in my players, I don't stop until their needs are met. And I don't know of any other competition out there that's doing what my program does.
I love what you said. Like, you never stop looking for an answer. If you have a problem, you have to find the answer. I find that very inspiring. So you are the Senior Information Security Analyst, right? Mm-hmm. What does your typical day over there look like?
I don't think there's such thing as typical. I do a lot of writing, which doesn't sound very exciting. I really specialize in policy, procedure, and like IT governance documentation. I do a lot of report writing. So when we do assessments, it's great if you do the assessment, then you have to explain it, right? You have to explain your findings. So I do a lot of writing to explain what the findings are and how you can remediate it and how you can make it more secure. I also have to write why. Why do we do this? Like, you know, I can't just say you need a good password. I have to say, this is why we need a good password. This is what makes a good password. You know, and that's a really easy example, but that's what our reports do. We say, this is what we saw. This is why it could be a problem. And this is how we recommend you fix it. And I do that. My company just got FedRAMP 3PAO status, which is there's only 38 companies in the US, and I think it's only US companies that can do it. So there's only 38 companies, and my company just got that certification. So we can actually do assessments to say that cloud service providers can service the federal government, which is really cool. I do a lot of federal assessments, so all the NIST frameworks. I'm not going to bore you with the alphabet soup. But I started in PCI, which is payment card industry. So a lot of what I started out doing was helping on security assessments. Now a lot of what I do is help on security assessments, write the reports, and I'm starting to conduct my own assessments.
This one is mine and Katie's personal questions. How did Zena become the privacy pupper? Like, how did that come into being?
Good marketing. So if you go to DEF CON, it's Crypto and Privacy Village, and I just thought it was cute. And here we are. It looked really good on a business card. So that's one of the things that I found when I was trying to break into the industry. You know, my personality didn't make people take me very serious, but I could brand myself really well. So that's where Privacy Pupper comes from. It's Crypto and Privacy Village. So Crypto Kate and Privacy Pupper. She's actually over here. I'll snag her for y'all, and we can enjoy her. She works very hard. And she says that girls should absolutely do cyber because this pupper does cyber every day.
She is so cute. I met her when she was a puppy, I think 2 years ago at Visa Chicago. She was still a tiny puppy. She's so cute.
When she broke free and ran into somebody's talk.
I did not know
Then we put up a sign on the door that said, cyber pup or attack pup or something, open door with caution because somebody let her out. She's like, who? Not me. But yeah, she's the chief pupper ambassador for the National Cyber League. We made her own superhero because we thought it was really important to represent diversity. And, you know, I don't really see myself as an ambassador for the disability community. I don't know enough about it. I should. But she is a service dog, and I hope that it makes having a service dog a little bit more normalized, where it's not so, you know, like novel, I guess.
I like that. Our last question to you. So, what advice do you have for the young people that are watching this session right now?
I firmly believe in following my heart wherever it takes me. I say this all the time, and I know it's not necessarily the best, most security answer, but I follow my heart in everything that I do with the National Cyber League, and I even follow my heart when I'm doing cybersecurity assessments. I can always trust my heart to know, that sounds like they're avoiding a question, or that sounds like they're giving me a very particular answer. A lot of times people think that you have to be very technically intelligent to be good at what we do. And I think having a really high emotional intelligence can serve you just as well. So follow your heart and your path and your goals, regardless of, you know, whether that seems off or whether that seems like it doesn't fit or it doesn't make sense. You know, my background before this was that I was a theater major. I wanted to direct like theater. And, you know, you would think, you know, I went to school for theater. How could I possibly end up in a science degree? My master's is a master's of science. If you had told 18-year-old me that I would get a master's of science, I probably would have had a heart attack because I wasn't smart enough to do this. I would, you know, like, I'm just going to do theater. But I saw, when I went back to school for technology, I saw a need and a void that could be filled by being different and being unique and having a different perspective. So, you know, it's not very technical, but I'd say just follow your heart. You'll find what's right for you. And there's no wrong way to be happy.
That is such great advice. And I do believe follow your heart, because then it doesn't feel like work too. So I am going to launch our poll for everybody to complete. And I want to thank Kate for joining us, and Zena as well, for joining us today, because you really have brought to light how we can get involved more with the capture the flags and really make our own path in cybersecurity. And I think that's such an important thing, because there are so many problems out there to solve. Now, I do want to remind everybody to follow us on our social media. We are on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, where this conversation will be posted by Friday evening. And you can also find all of our previously recorded conversations there. You'll also want to follow our social media and find out about things like our upcoming high school Gen Cyber Girls Camp that we're having, that registration is open for on cyber.org now. So if you're a high school student looking for a virtual camp to do starting in I think it's this spring. I can't remember the exact dates off the top of my head, but you'll want to go to our website to find out more information.
I did Gen Cyber. I recommend it.
It is wonderful, yes. Just like NCL, which I did participate in NCL, and I was really happy with my scores for the little amount of time I had to do them. Next week, though, we do have Dr. Pam Rowland, one of our co-founders for CybHER, and she's an assistant professor at Dakota State University. So you'll want to go to our website to sign up for her as well. We'll also be taking a break from the Conversations program during the week of Thanksgiving, but we look forward to bringing you more awesome professionals in December. So thank you, Kate. Thank you to those of you who have joined us live, and for those who are watching this on our YouTube channel. We look forward to seeing you all again on future conversations. Have a great day.